The coaching carousel almost stopped. We have one seat left, one seat filled earlier this week. An interesting name that was a head coaching candidate is going to be an offensive coordinator, and somebody's not going to be a GM anymore. Oh, yeah, and a little thing called the Super Bowl is on tap. Seahawks, Patriots. Let's get into it. It's Martin and Monaco. Alex off for another week as we prepare for the Super Bowl, as Drake May shoulder injury, Sam Darnold oblique injury. You know what I'm saying? Those are the two obviously stars in this matchup. Mike Macdonald, defensive head coach. Mike Vrabel, defensive head coach. Kind of changing the way we view things in all of the way, like the view of the NFL in general. And with that in mind, Ian, as we talk about these quarterbacks either on a rookie deal or a quarterback kind of on a bargain deal, we talk about these two defensive-minded head coaches in the Super Bowl. Let's go through some of the news and notes that have occurred in the NFL recently.
Yeah, so just this morning, let's start with this one, the most newsworthy as it is the most recent. The Giants are hiring former Bears head coach and former Chiefs offensive coordinator Matt Nagy to be their new offensive coordinator. He's John Harbaugh's big hire here of the last few days, and what do you think of it? You think it works? Feels like the reception has been less than warm for Nagy so far in New York.
I'll say this. I don't understand why Matt Nagy's PR team is so bad. Like, I get it. It was not great with the Bears, but it wasn't quite like Mark Trestman. Like, it wasn't. It was bad. It was not an overt disaster. And Mitch Trubisky did play well enough to make a Pro Bowl, which is part of the reason why we stopped caring about Pro Bowls. But the fact remains, he was able to organize that offense to a double-digit win season with Mitch Trubisky as his quarterback. Obviously, he's not the play caller in Kansas City with Patrick Mahomes being behind the wheel and Andy Reid being the guy that's, driving the car there. Patrick Mahomes, obviously, the gas pedal to that offense. But a guy like, he's been in the room with Andy Reid for the last however long. He had his own shot, failed at that, and probably had a lot to do with his quarterback's inability. And he's honestly still had an ability to get to double-digit wins. It's not something that super impresses me. I would not want Matt Nagy I wouldn't want to be his second head coaching shot. But Matt Nagy as offensive coordinator under John Harbaugh, I feel good about, because John Harbaugh is going to have an established plan of what he wants to do, when he wants to do it, and how it's supposed to look, as a true CEO head coach should. So it's going to be about Matt Nagy being able to implement John Harbaugh's view of offense. I feel like he should be okay at that.
I'm with you. I've actually been really surprised to see how negative the response has been to the fact that he's, and again, it's just been a few hours. It was this morning that it was announced, but it feels like everyone's just kind of overwhelmingly negative on this, when Matt Nagy's actually been a pretty successful offensive coordinator in this league under Andy Reid, yes, and he wasn't the play caller these last few years for the Chiefs. Last time we saw him as a play caller was for the Bears. Like you said, he helped Mitch Trubisky to a Pro Bowl. It was really Justin Fields and, him who ended up not being a great match, and obviously not a good head coach. Like, we came to that conclusion. I'm not making any Justin Fields excuse there, but I'm just saying in terms of him as a play caller, we have seen him succeed and we've seen him fail at it. One such time that we saw him fail was with Justin Fields as his quarterback, a guy who we kind of know at this point isn't really a viable option as an NFL quarterback, and he was able to, get some sort of results out of him there. And Nagy himself, last few years with the Chiefs, they've been good. Obviously, last year was an exception, but the whole franchise took a step back last year. It wasn't just him. It wasn't just Mahomes. It was Andy Reid, all of them. So, yeah, I actually like this. And like you said, John Harbaugh, true CEO-style head coach. So he's a guy where the offensive coordinator hire is really, really important. So for a guy who was getting head coach hires this cycle, right or wrong, you need that ilk of a guy to be your offensive coordinator, the head coach of your offense. It's a good guy to have.
And I also think, too, when you're dealing with a guy like Jackson Dart, maybe Matt. Okay, so I kind of disagree. I think Justin Fields had a little more in the tank than he does now. I mean, at the time, when Chicago, right? Is Justin Fields a starting NFL quarterback for 17 games? Probably not. However, I kind of felt that if you dressed it up like the way Pittsburgh did, you could win more games than you lose with him, right? Like sort of like Bryce Young. I don't think Bryce Young is a starting level NFL caliber quarterback, but if you draw it up around him the right way, he can win a few more games than he loses. But I don't want either one of these guys on a second contract. If you can't make that guy work, okay, I get it. But like Jackson Dart to me should be able to drop back pass in the way that Justin Fields wasn't. And Matt Nagy wasn't running Justin Fields enough. He wanted him to drop back pass. It seems to be like a little bit of a kind of a match made in heaven. Let's talk, or I shouldn't say a match made in heaven, but it could be a match made in heaven. Like down the line, we could look at this and be like, this really works very, very well. I'm higher on that than I am on the next hire that you're about to talk about.
Right, so speaking of that, Mike LaFleur to the Arizona Cardinals. He's the latest hire in the head coaching cycle. What do you think? That's a tough division. He's going up against the Rams, who are now his former team, the Seahawks, who are in the Super Bowl now, and the 49ers, who were just a game away from the Super Bowl. So what do you think about that hire, Mike LaFleur to the Cardinals?
I'm fascinated by it for a few different reasons. The first reason, I've been reading this book. I highly recommend it. It's called The Why Is Everything by Michael Silver. He writes for The Athletic. If you read it, you'll see it's basically about, it's got 4 guys on the front cover. Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, Mike McDaniel, and Raheem Morris. Okay? The through line between all of these guys is the 2013 Washington Redskins, right? With Mike Shanahan being the head coach. So when we talk about the Sean McVay tree, we are really truly talking about the Mike Shanahan tree. He hires Kyle as his offensive coordinator in Washington. Kyle hires Sean. And Mike McDaniel and Raheem Morris, they met along the way. But that's the important part. Mike LaFleur was like a grad assistant for this team, right? I look at this in this way. First of all these guys know each other intimately, very well, and have been like very, very good friends. You remember before the NFC divisional round game, there were stories about how Sean McVay did not like how Ben Johnson was talking about Matt LaFleur.
With
right?
the handshake and stuff,
the
too.
The handshake and all of that, because they're all this super tight-knit group, okay? They're all – so do I think Mike LaFleur can coach? I don't know. Maybe Zach Wilson was a lost cause. Maybe New York was just too much, right? Calling plays, first time, rookie quarterback, all of that. Maybe he can, maybe he can't. But what fascinates me about it is we are more than likely, overwhelmingly so, going to go through a cycle in which 10 head coaches were hired. None of them were black, right? When you look at the head coaches that were hired, you have essentially your retreads, right? And John Harbaugh, and help me out here, I'm doing this off the top of my head, but you got the John Harbaugh who came back in, Kevin
Stefanski, Robert Saleh
came back in, Robert Saleh came back in. Keep a pin in Robert Saleh. But so those 2 guys came back in, right? They were head coaches before, got another opportunity. Robert Saleh got another opportunity, but also he's part of that group, right? He's part of that Shanahan tree that comes down. The NFL absolutely has a hiring problem. And it absolutely has a blind spot when it comes to race and making sure that there's a level of representation at every level and I'm not trying to say that should be less black coaches in the NFL by any stretch of the imagination. But the hiring of Mike LaFleur as the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals shows me that NFL owners have, I don't want to say no idea what they're doing, but NFL owners are chasing after something that may not exist, right? And they have been doing it. When you look at the longest tenured coaches in the league now, Zach Taylor is one of them. He got that job because he sat at the foot of Sean McVay. Has he had some grand success in the NFL? Okay, went to a Super Bowl, but since then, it's been a real quiet. The NFL, for whatever reason, is just sticking with these guys who were in this Mike Shanahan / Sean McVay / Kyle Shanahan tree, and I think it's because they view those guys as doing football better than everybody else. right? Now, I'm not disagreeing with that. When you look at the results, they're there, right? But it all, and so when you look at who they hire, right? Like the new defensive coordinator in San Francisco, Raheem Morris. Guess you may not know this. This is not. I read this in the book and was floored. They got arrested together, Kyle Shanahan and Raheem Morris at the combine 12 years ago.
I did not know that.
Right? So, like, they've known think about that. They've known each other for that long. Then to tell the story, Raheem Morris was, the Indianapolis police said Raheem was being confused for somebody else. And, they approached him and were trying to take him into custody. Kyle was like, you can't do that. And they were like, we'll show you how much we can do that. We'll take you both with us. Right?
Okay.
And this is when, right. So this is, Kyle was like, and Kyle at the time was, obviously, is Mike Shanahan's son. So this is whole story of nepotism, this, that, and the third. And probably true because Kyle already was an OC. But Raheem Morris got several head coaching jobs in this league. He's part of this group, right? I don't have the answer in terms of how do more black coaches get hired outside of the fact of they just need to pull the trigger and do so. But when we look at this particular hiring cycle and the hiring cycles over the last few years, it has been either former head coaches getting new jobs or guys flaming out terribly, right? You guys flame out 1-2 years and they're done. Former head coaches get recycled, or somebody in this class gets picked as a head coach. The next black head coach in the NFL will likely be Nate Scheelhaus because he works for Sean McVay. Not because he's, you know what I'm saying? And I don't, it is not great that that's the only seemingly thing that people can pull from. And we've have different instances of where these guys have failed at all these different, it hasn't seemed to stop. But it feels like, remember when Belichick was running the NFL? All of a sudden, all the Belichick assistants got head coaching jobs. Then they started to lose and they weren't successful. The way the NFL looks at it now, they look at Kyle and Sean as running the NFL. And they're pulling everybody they can from those staffs. So, I don't have, my overall point, I don't know if Mike LaFleur is going to be good or bad or indifferent in Arizona. I know he knows a ton of football. I know he was in those rooms with a lot of those other geniuses, right, that we deem to be geniuses. Some of that doesn't work at the head coaching level. You could just ask Mike McDaniel, right? It may not work at the head coaching level. Ultimately, though, when we're sitting here talking about why are guys not getting hired, why is this guy getting hired over this guy, that is why. That's the rationale behind it. There's a ton of other reasons that exist. I'm not pushing any of them away. But it's the proximity to the person they feel like is unimpeachable, more so than anything else, in my opinion. Because these guys want to win. I do believe that owners want to win.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting point to make. It does feel like it's like to get a head coaching job, you either have to be part of that specific tree or you have to be, a unique CEO defensive guru type of coach. It's
like,
or a retread head coach who already got their opportunity before. So it's like you either have to be part of this special up and coming tree. It's like Ben Johnson's really the only exception you could point to as a guy who was like hired outside of that tree as someone other than like a retread head coach. Right.
Think of and I think that's the thing that I want to touch. Like and you touched on it. You did a better job of crystallizing it than me. Who's been hired that's not a retread or from that tree? The list is short. The list is really short. And then when you even like a Joe Brady, got promoted from within. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like I'm not trying to, whatever, Buffalo, I don't believe they did the most expansive possible search because, you ended up with the same guy who was calling, it's tough for me to hear that. But, like, still, it's one that's right down the hall. Jerry with Brian Schottenheimer, he's promoting a guy from right down the hall. These are not necessarily expansive head coaching searches. So, like, do I think that they probably did a disservice in themselves? Yeah, because they had decided who they're going to hire before they had made the firing, right? Which I think is a pretty bad.
And it's not like those hires are ever met with like unanimous praise and stuff in the way that these Shanahan and McVay tree hires are. It's like there's this excitement and buzz it generates in the fan base when you get one of those guys in the way that it just doesn't when you hire a Schottenheimer or a Joe Brady like that. We'll see how they do. Maybe these guys have success and then they start creating their own trees. That's all you can really hope for to break that, and maybe more of the people learning under them are black, and that helps. But it is a problem, clearly.
And the final thing I'll say on this is two things that I don't care for. One is an industry-wide problem about how we report on this. Because people will say, I'm just picking one out of the blue. No, I don't even need to pick one. You know who all of them are because they all do it. But they will say, oh, Fox Sports Radio has just interviewed Martin Weiss to qualify its Rooney Rule requirements. And now it's free to interview Ian Roddy. Right? The black person's interview was the only impediment to the person getting the job. They're reporting it as such because a lot of the time these people are just checking boxes, right? However, it does a disservice every single time. When you hear that every single time that is the case, right? That does a disservice to the rule. The rule works. Minorities get interviews, right? The rule works. The rule does not have the consequence that was intended. But if the speed limit is 35 miles an hour and you want people to drive below 35, people are doing that. Now, if you wanted people to drive below 35 and getting less accidents, I can't promise you that they're doing, that you might need a stop sign instead of a speed limit, right? You know what I'm saying? So, it's the system, quote unquote, is getting the design interviews. But they're making up the mind that I am hiring Sean McVay's quarterback coach because I want the guy that learned at the foot of Sean McVay.
Well, we can move on to the last one here just before we go over to the Super Bowl preview. We've been going for a while, but the Vikings fired general manager Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. And there are reports now that he took a 2-week paternity leave, and that's been met with debate on social media, as pretty much everything is these days. But your thoughts on the Vikings firing Kwesi?
This is what happens when you get the quarterback so wrong. And I was saying this all year. As soon as Daniel Jones and Sam Darnold start out, and I forget their exact records, I think both of the Seahawks started out like 4-2 or something like that, or 4-1. The Colts 4-0. It's like, oh, you guys are getting fired for this. Because it's like, if you're the weatherman, and you tell everybody it's going to be 83 and sunny, and it's 87 and sunny, nobody cares. If you're the weatherman and you tell everybody it's going to be 83 and sunny, and it's a hurricane, then people are going to be like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. The Super Bowl starter, MVP favorite currently, was in your quarterback room. Up until week 9, one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the NFL was in your quarterback room. Right? And you stuck with J.J. McCarthy, who was so bad, there's no justification, right? It's one thing if we saw J.J. McCarthy have the year, say, Caleb Williams had this year. Up and down, but a lot of growth, a lot of something that you see like, hey, this is our guy. He may not be a finished product, but he's far from it. Even if you're the New York Giants, you say Jackson Dart has a concussion problem, but if he can stay out of the tent, we feel like we have a guy despite our 2-7 record with him as a starter, right? That is not what they feel like right now, right, with J.J. McCarthy. And you have that type of power, you have that type of swing and miss, then everything is put under question. Because I guarantee you this right here, right now. If they had signed Sam Darnold, and they won 14 games again, nobody would care that Adolfo-Mensah took 2 weeks off for parental leave. Nobody would care. Mm-hmm. Nobody. You don't know. Like, sincerely. And I get the whole, we are sitting here watching coaches say, hey, Joe Brady missed the birth of his son, or our child rather, because he was coaching a game. I'm reading a book, actually the same book, and Sean McVay's kid, I believe, was born as he's sitting next to Kyle Shanahan on a bus on the way to a game, right? If there's anything this coaching cycle has shown, the relationship and the work level between GM and coach is wildly different, right?
Yeah, I just think part of what makes it so weird is just the timing of it. If you were going to fire him, why was it until now? Like, was it really just you had to see Sam Darnold make the Super Bowl and that was just the trigger where it's like, all right, get this guy out of here? Is that it? Because it's weird. If you were going to fire him, why don't you do it right after the season?
That is my interpretation and feeling. That's my feeling.
It's a weird look for the franchise, though, no?
I think that this is something that, remember I said it on our Fox Sports Radio show on Saturday, I give Jerry a little bit more credit than something else. I think this is an ownership move because it doesn't make any other sense. They're going into the draft without a GM. Who does that?
Right. It's like, moves like this where the timing doesn't line up. It's a good point. It's like it really just screams ownership decision. The people who aren't really the football people trying to intervene and make the decisions, because any football savvy person would have made a move like this ASAP as soon as possible. They wouldn't have waited to feel some personal sting of seeing their quarterback in the Super Bowl before having to make the move. I'm with you there.
I truly believe that. It obviously ownership is going to be the person who fires him, but it's like when it becomes like that, it's something happened today and you got to go. That's the way I feel about it. So when you hear about all these, he took 2 weeks paternity, he did this, he did that, there were grumblings. Nobody likes the boss, right? Like nobody truly, like you might be cool with the boss, but nobody likes the boss. And so when you have this moment where this guy's fired out of the blue, then you can then point at all the things that he did, quote unquote, to get fired. I'm telling you what he did to get fired. He missed on quarterback. That's what happened. If he had landed on the quarterback, Brandon Beane has missed on a million picks. No Pro Bowlers. You know how hard it is to not have a Pro Bowler on the defense? No Pro Bowler. He got a promotion because he got Josh Allen. And the owner said it. He got the quarterback right.
Well, let's move over to the Super Bowl now. Going to look at this from two different perspectives here because there's going to be two phases of this game. One with the Seahawks on offense and the Patriots on defense, and vice versa with the Patriots on offense, Seahawks on defense. So let's start with the first one. Seahawks on offense, Patriots on defense. How do you see that playing out?
For me, the key to the game is going to have to be the Seahawks' ability to run the ball, right? I've harped on this all year. The Seahawks, to me, understand exactly who Sam Darnold is. And as a result, they have the record that they do, right? And I don't necessarily know if the Vikings did in the same way. But the Seahawks, their ability to minimize Sam Darnold's mistakes, right, or to minimize the opportunities for Sam Darnold to make a mistake is going to be dependent upon their ability to run the ball consistently on early downs. I think if they can average 4 or 5 yards a carry on first down, stay in front of the sticks, then I think they'll have a lot of success relative to the amount of offensive success that they've been having, right? Scoring about 21 points on the offensive side of the ball. I can see that type of output coming. My concern would be Christian Barmore and Milton Williams from Philly. Those two guys have been all pro for the Patriots this postseason. If you go back and look at the fourth down call that will live in infamy for Sean Payton, it didn't matter what he called because Barmore and Wilkins were sitting in the defensive backfield. They were just sitting there. It didn't matter who. You could have had Jarrett Stidham. You could have had Tom Brady. It did not matter because guard and center did not even make contact on that interior. Your ability to run the ball, especially to the Seahawks like to do kind of outside zone, is going to mitigate some of that nose tackle pressure. I think that if you're looking, I wonder how the Patriots are going to try to defend Jackson Smith and Jigba, right? Because that is obviously the guy who makes the whole thing go in Seattle. As good as Sam Darnold is, let's be realistic. JSN is the best player on that offense, right? So how do they guard him? Because I tend to think they will see previous Patriot teams like the Belichick Patriots. They would double him and just play man everywhere else, right?
Yeah, you know they would take away what you do best and make you beat them some
and make you play left-handed. So I wonder if they're going to have a similar strategy here. My concern would be with that if you man everybody else and you're not, you have to double or at least shade over the top of Raheed Shaheed. And that's why they traded for him. Do you know what I'm saying? Because you can single up Cooper Kupp. You can single up all the other guys they have out there, really, except for JSN. But Raheed Shaheed, you've got to bubble over the top of him because he can burn you every single play. Just ask the Rams. I think it was Seahawks play 1. They take a 40-yard shot to Shaheed because he was in single coverage. So that's why, to me, it comes down to Kenneth Walker. So if you can run the ball consistently, take advantage of, and then hit Shaheed when he's got single coverage, that'll free JSN up in a way that I don't know if the Patriots can come back from.
Now, I will say the Patriots are uniquely equipped to deal with a guy like JSN in the fact that they have one of the best corners in the league in Christian Gonzalez. I will say JSN is better than Gonzalez. I don't think anyone would dispute that. But they at least have a guy who should be able to match up with him one-on-one and at least be able to open up a little more help over for Shaheed. But I agree with you. It's going to come down to the run game. And I actually said that, and I hate to say it like this, but Zach Charbonnet getting injured was almost like a secret. I don't even want to say like it was a blessing for them, but it secretly like helps Seattle because it's forcing them to use Kenneth Walker, which in my opinion they've been doing far too little of all season long. And again, that's rich for me to say. They're sitting here in the Super Bowl, but you can see how much more explosive of a runner he is than Charbonnet every time he touches the ball. And for some reason, all year long, they've insisted on taking away his goal line carries and giving them to Charbonnet. And not even just goal line, just whenever K9 has momentum, they would give it to Charbonnet. And I think since Charbonnet's been out and they've been forced to rely more on Kenneth Walker, it's done wonders for them because he's, like, when he gets the ball, he's one of the most electric players on the field, if not the most electric player. So it's been a little bit of a secret blessing. I don't know how I want to phrase that because it's like you almost feel bad saying it about Charbonnet. But
when you
go ahead.
Opening up for Kenneth Walker to get more touches, I think the best way to go about it, and I think is probably with no inside information, I imagine what they were thinking to do was you got to load manage these guys, right? You've got to make sure that you have as many weapons available for if you get to this point, right? And now they're here, and to your point, they had both of that dual running attack for the majority of the year. Now, if Charbonnet probably could have held it down for one game too, right? You know what I mean? But it's like getting them both to really rep, I think, paid off a lot of dividends because now you should, in theory,
you're right,
have a healthy or a fresh Kenneth Walker, as fresh as he's going to be.
It is like because they did that all year, like that's the reason K9 is so explosive and healthy right now. So I get where you're coming from there, but it's just in that regard, it's really worked out perfectly for them. But
now,
anyway, let's move over to the other side of the. Oh, unless you had one more thing to say.
I was just going to say the other thing about this, Raheed Shaheed. Well, there's two massive weapons in this game, both of them punt returner, kick returner, Rashid Shaheed and Marcus Jones. Either one of those guys could house. In fact, like if you were looking for props on the like I'm looking at special teams props. Do you know what I'm saying? Because I can see something like that really popping off. But I think the amount of kick return yardage and punt return yardage that the Seahawks get is going to play a major role in this as well. We talked about this during the NFC Championship game. If they can score from 3 first downs, they will win this game. If they have to score, if they need 5 first downs, 4 first downs, then I think this thing is in a lot more question.
Yeah. All right, well, let's move over to the other side of the ball now. With the Patriots on offense versus that vaunted Seahawks defense, how do you think they fare? With Drake May, who is an MVP candidate here, how do you think he does?
That's what's fascinating here. I would say this. I think that we are looking at a guy who I don't want to say – I'm not going so far to say Drake May has been carried through these playoffs. Drake May has not played well throughout these playoffs. He has not played so poorly that his team lost, right, which is the thing. And we have seen it on the other side of the AFC, but typically in the teams that the Patriots are playing. If he comes out in the first quarter and puts the ball on the ground are at risk, I'm going to be really worried for the Patriots in this game. Like, or at least up into halftime, right? Like, if he feels like he shows nerves and stuff like that, like I'm not worried for him, but if in fact he starts to show those things, then I will expect that like Josh and Mike Vrabel will be able to pull him to the side at halftime and be like, Drake, hey, it's okay, dude. We got 30 more minutes of football. Let's go have some fun. Let's take a break. Let's relax. And there's nothing in there's nothing that he's given off thus far that gives me the implication that he feels any nerves, right? Like watching his press conferences, he seems to be very confident. His shoulder, he's blowing it off like it's no issue. It may be. Right. If it is, it's the Super Bowl, bro. You got to deal with it. But I think that the Patriots' overall lack of team speed in regard to the Seahawks, right? You know, they're faster than a lot of teams, but in regard to that Seahawks defense, I think we're going to see like multiple trick plays from New England, like a lot, like upwards of 3, and that gives me pause because I could easily see like a 57-yard Philly special type run, like, you know what I'm saying, or like a pass back to the quarterback from Travion Henderson, or I don't even know. You'll find out that Kyle Williams was actually an option quarterback in high school, and that's why he can throw the ball like that as Drake May streaks down the sideline. You know, Drake May's brothers played receiver, you know, as he go through it all. But I think the Patriots are at a schematic, like just a physical disadvantage against this defense, and I think that they will be coached up in a way to, like, take advantage of that, right? Like, to take advantage of the fact that I think the Seahawks defense is looking at this like we're bigger, we're stronger, we're faster. We have our keys, we have our rules, but ultimately, if we're physical, we will be able to win this game. And I think Patriots look at it like, how do we slip that punch and then uppercut real quick, right? Because it's like they can't just sit there and box. And so I think in that regard, there'll be some trick plays, off-balance plays, even a bunch of stuff like counters and things like naked and bootlegs and things that get the defense going one way and moving the other and using Drake. Because the thing about having a young quarterback that may not be playing that well or may not trust his arm that much, Drake May can run the ball. That first down, he got it, you know. So, like, I can see, you know, as opposed to an interception, let's tuck it and get 7 yards and stay alive. It's okay to punt in this game. We just need to be in it in the fourth quarter. You need to be in it on the last possession. I think that's the type of game New England will try to coach to. You know what I'm saying? And it comes down to Drake May's ability to execute that game plan. Because I really have no doubt in Josh McDaniels' ability to implement that.
So as we sit here early in the week, who do you think wins the game?
I'm pretty sure my analysis on both sides colored it. I've had the Seahawks winning the Super Bowl since like week 13, and I've been on it. I just think that the way they deploy their defensive players, I think is going to be the next thing in the NFL. Very much like the Shanahan was the thing. I think that Mike Macdonald is about to be the thing. And I've watched him coach it at Michigan. I've watched him coach it at Baltimore. He has confounded some of the best quarterbacks that we've ever seen play this game. And at different stages of their career. And the first time somebody sees that defense, it's almost like the stats are incredible. It's almost like the first time a team from the NFC plays Lamar Jackson up until the last year, where it was like, oh, yeah, just chalk him up for like 350, 4 touchdowns, and 39-6 against a team in the NFC that's going to win 13 games because Lamar is so hard to guard, right? He's just so hard to plan for, right? This Seahawks defense is so malleable, and they do so many different things well, and have so many interchangeable players, right? Like the human worry to Julian Love, and then just on the front side with the Nigerian pass rusher that they have, and what's Nwosu?
Mafe.
Yeah, and Mafe, right? Both of them, right? The way that they play off of each other, the way that Tank Lawrence plays in that, like the way that they just have a ton of really smart, really sound just defensive guys who also want to kill you. And so when I
and
look at
Witherspoon too, he's just like
Right.
such a tone setter too. Just embodies
So-
exactly what you're saying.
And to that point, pay attention. I heard somebody say this, and I'll never forget it. Now while I'm watching teams, John Middlecoff said it. The way you judge a physical defense, how well do their cornerbacks hit? If their cornerbacks hit, that's a physical defense. If they don't, then you can talk about the safeties in line. They're supposed to be physical, right? Devin Witherspoon will plant you like a tree. Right, and so like I like the pay. I like it. I like the Seahawks' defensive matchup against a young quarterback. I think that Drake May will struggle to execute 2 or 3 plays. That'll be the difference in the game.
So, last question: do you think if you have the Seahawks winning, do you think Sam Darnold gets Super Bowl MVP, or do you think it's a defensive player, a la Von Miller in 2015?
So I'll put a little cheese down on this. I'll have Sam. I'm betting on Rashid Shaheed, too. I've looked this up. Desmond Howard had 244 return yards when he won the Super Bowl MVP. No, I'm telling you. He had 99-yard kick return and a 90-yard punt return, and one of them went for a touchdown. And it's all on special teams yards. I think Shaheed's got a chance to house one in this game. He's been a weapon for them all postseason. I mean, ever since the trade deadline, really, he's been a special teams weapon. I could see him getting. Look, would you be surprised if the Patriots score 17 points? Would you be surprised to see Shaheed with 65, 75 special teams yards?
No, not at all.
You know what I'm saying? So, like, he hits one of those for a touchdown, catches a big play. I like his options for the value boom bust type of situation.
Cool. All right, well, that's going to do it for today's show. Thanks, everyone, for listening, and we're going to talk to you next week with a recap of the big game. So talk to you then.